And welcome to the SiGMA podcast, where we speak to all the biggest players about the hottest issues in the gaming industry. My name is Wesley Ellul, and today's focus is on Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And to help give us a better picture of what we're dealing with, we are here with Chad, Brian, and Anthony. Here we go. Our topic for today's podcast is cybersecurity concerns in an explosive sports betting growth market. Now, before we dive in, first on the topic itself, I'd like everybody to sort of introduce themselves, give it a brief background on who you are and who you're working with. Let's start with you, Chad.
Yeah, so good morning all, or good afternoon, depending on where you're at in the world. Chad Ives, Sales Director at Continent 8 Technologies.
Oh, fantastic. And Brian?
All right, Brian Borysewich, CISO, Chief Information Security Officer for Continent 8 Security.
And finally, Anthony.
Anthony Gaud, CEO of G3 Gaud-Hammer Gaming Group.
Oh, wow. So we have three very different people from all parts of the sort of gaming world. And today we're going to be diving in to talk about what's happening in the sports betting industry at the moment. We're seeing unprecedented growth in sports betting, as you guys know, specifically in the U.S. sports and gambling market, which is now a multi-billion-dollar industry, with some of the experts actually predicting the market will be more than $100 billion by 2025. Now, a lot of the growth is being fueled by the 2018 Supreme Court's ruling of striking down the federal ban on state-sponsored sports betting. Now, as more and more states are opening up and passing laws permitting sports gambling, you can imagine this is also opening up cybersecurity concerns for companies who are looking to capitalize on the emerging markets, as well as consumers attracted to these betting platforms. Now, Continent 8 has been a recognized leader in the managed hosting space for connectivity and cloud and security services, and has supported the iGaming industry for more than 20 years. Chad, could you just tell us a little bit about this growth?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So, if you look at Continent 8 Technologies over the past 20 plus years, we're really sort of a bellwether in a way for the growth of the industry in general. If you look at, our 80 plus data centers, our private network spread across 4 continents, North America, the UK, Asia, South America. But if you kind of span that down to, something a little more nearer term, maybe in the past several years, the real growth in the industry has really come from the growth here in the United States market. Right now it's, 30 plus states have now regulated at this point. And right now Continent 8 is in 25 of them. Now, I would say that we sort of follow the regulation, and we do, but I would say our growth isn't just about geography, and it's not just about regulation. It's actually about layering in services that keep our customers safe as well. So if you look at our growth, it's about not just, as I said, geography, not just about regulation, but it's about what services that we're offering to our current customer base and those companies that are about to become gaming companies as well. So it's hosting, it's network, those things that we've been delivering to customers for the better part of 20 plus years. And now adding to that recently within about a year and a half or so, it's layering in security services on top to complement those staple services that we've been offering for a long time.
Okay. And I met Nick, I think he's your CEO or managing director in Barcelona earlier this year. And he was just telling me that how you're taking a multifaceted look at the industry. It's not just we can do this, but we need to sort of protect our clients in all sorts of different ways and really take care of our customers' concerns. Brian, from your side, can you talk more about this concern of and why more and more sports betting markets are opening up and why cybersecurity must be a priority to them?
Certainly. Thank you. So when we start talking about sports betting and online gaming, just in general, it becomes a very attractive target for bad actors. And the reason for that is the bad actors will always follow where the money goes. And when I talk about bad actors, we're talking about hackers, we're talking about state-sponsored attackers. So that's when I reference a bad actor, which I was one myself for about 30 years. There's a very nice attraction to coming to these sites because, one, it's easy money. Secondly, the easy money can flow in a number of ways. One is with, you may have heard, distributed denials of services, is the DDoS attacks. And DDoS attacks are used in two separate ways against gaming companies, actually against companies in general. But in gaming, it can be used two ways. One way is that in a DDoS attack, it could be part of a ransomware attack where the bad actor is inside your network, has exploited all your data, and if you don't pay up, they use a DDoS to put more pressure on you. The second caveat would be that they use DDoS as the attack vector, and if you don't pay up, they're going to continue this DDoS attack upon your company. So that, and this, it's not, like I said, isolated to gaming, but gaming is the very attractive platform right now, especially with, all the states opening up. Europe is opening up, and in particular, like South America has markets emerging in it. So these platforms are known to have, as you said, billions of dollars. And those hosting, services, like the gaming companies, they're the very rich, target-rich environment right now. How do you stop it? There's a number of ways that it can be thwarted, but it'll never be stopped because the bad actors will always be ahead of you. It's electronic warfare. Think of cybersecurity as exactly as electronic warfare. I introduce a radar, you have a countermeasure against my radar, and we just keep, leapfrogging. The problem is that the companies are traditionally 8x5. The bad actors are 24x7. So they have this certain advantage of they're not going to give up on you until they get through. And they're going to get through. It's not this is general across all industries. It's not a matter of if you get attacked, it's when you get attacked. And when you do get attacked, what are you going to be disclosing? And that, that comes to regulatory bodies and such. But yeah, that's kind of the reason that it's a focal point right now, is because that's where the money is. Follow the money.
I fully get you. My main focus is actually in the blockchain and crypto industry. So I completely understand what you're doing. And in fact, the fact that you were actually on the bad actor side for a number of years, I really want to find out that story, but maybe that's for another podcast. For today, though, we're talking about security now. And the fact that there are so many bad actors and there are all these cybersecurity challenges, how do we address them? Chad, what's like Continent 8's approach when it comes down to addressing these cybersecurity challenges?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things there, and I think within the gaming industry, we're sort of unique in that. So to kind of start that off, I would say our industry focus, right? Since day one of Continent 8's birth back in the late 90s up till now, we've really had a singular focus on the gaming world, right? That said, I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future. So everything we've done, and I'll go back to some of the growth that I talked about previously, everything that we've done as a company has been to service our customers and the growth of the gaming industry. So the industry focus, I would say, is number one. Number two, it really comes with a depth and breadth of services. So if you think about, what we did in the beginning and what we did for the past 20 years around hosting data centers and network, if you were to look at that sort of conceptually as sort of the bricks and mortar, the foundation of Continent 8, you could look at the security services that we're now layering. It would sort of be the walls and the roof, so to speak. So, Brian talked about DDoS. So as we look at, the perimeter, what's out in the network, what's beyond, your company walls, your company network, your, outside the firewall, so to speak. Out in the world there, you've got threats coming from potential DDoS attacks. So, Continent 8 has been doing DDoS for several years now. As a as a protection against these volumetric attacks for anything really exposed to the outside world, or in this case, the public internet. DDoS attacks have grown. This year, I think in the first half of the year, we've had more DDoS attacks than all of last year. And I don't think anybody sees that changing or going down in any way. So having some DDoS protection at the perimeter, I think is essential. That's the first piece. And then once again, as I'm talking about, those things within the perimeter and those things, let me kind of redo this. As we continue to talk about the perimeter and those products and services that Continent 8 is using to help protect our customers, WAF, Web Application Firewall, for those that don't know what WAF is, for those internet-based services, which, by the way, most of our customers, their services are internet-based, it helps protect them against things like zero-day, log4j attacks. Our WAF has been protecting our customers within 24 hours of the service being available. So once you get inside, and we start to get inside that perimeter, inside the firewall, so to speak, we start to look at things like the endpoints. The devices that you and I are talking on today, our laptops, our desktops, virtual servers, within our data centers, et cetera. We start to look at those things as individual, what we call endpoints. So then we start to talk about things like endpoint detection and response. And if you think about, for those out there, everybody knows what antivirus on your laptop is. You have to think about EDR as more of a nuclear antivirus, so to speak. It's working and looking for all of the known threats out there, but what it's also doing is using analysis and artificial intelligence to look at not just known threats, but look at behaviors as well. So it's not just about how a bad actor out there might be trying to access, but it's how they're doing it as well. It's looking at behaviors, and it gives us the ability as your partner, your security partner, to take action quickly and swiftly, to do things like we can automatically do things like isolate a particular device or a particular endpoint, to do things a lot quicker than customers can potentially do them. Brian talked about 8x5. This is a 24x7. When nobody is there, we can do all these things, and a lot of these things we can do automatically. So then when we take a look at the engine that's kind of looking at all of these pieces and parts, we start to talk about our SOC and our SIM. SIM, and I'll, for those out there that don't know what a SIM is, it's really an engine, a security, information, and event management is what the acronym stands for. It's really that machine looking at events, analyzing, ticketing, deciding, what's a potential threat and what's not. And then we've got the SOC, which is the people behind the scenes. And I'll go back to something that Brian said a few minutes ago as well, and that's nothing is 100%. It's not if something is going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And the fact that if we look at customers and security breaches these days, what that has done to, it's destroyed companies at times. It's certainly destroyed reputations of companies. So the real question is, all of the things that I've mentioned are preventative, and that's great. But what that one thing that gets through, you want to have that team that's been doing this for a year, acting on your behalf to isolate, to stop, and ultimately to remediate any damage that's been done. So that's why I think the SOC and the people within the SOC actually is so incredibly important. And that takes me to the last point here, is experience. Experience in the SOC, Continent 8's experience with regulation. Our team, our SOC team, our security team has been together for the better part of 20 years. It's the same pedigree that, Continent 8 is bringing to gaming customers for the past 2 decades. So it's really a marriage of technology and people to bring the best solution and to keep customers safe. So I think that's kind of where we stand out. We really have a unique advantage in the marketplace.
And that, I think that's why Continent 8 is being trusted by some of the industry's largest gaming brands at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Now, I have a question for Brian here. Brian, you've seen it all when it comes down to cybersecurity. And probably one thing that you've seen as well is you've probably seen the development of regulations in the space where cybersecurity prevention and controls have actually been written into the regulation. How have you seen it evolve from the early years of when you started to where you are now being part of the gaming operations?
All right. Yeah. So I'll say one word: Enron. So Enron is where this all started, right? So the regulation piece of this really came down from the Enron side, and the reason I say that is, when Graham Leach came in and Sarbanes-Oxley, which is now part of that security initiative driving, behind the scenes, and then individual states like California has their own regulatory requirements. New Jersey has its own. You have GLBA over in Europe, and here, for instance, in the Philippines, we have DPA, and they're all driven by protecting personal information. It's really not protecting the company or protecting the data of the company. It all boils down to protecting the individual. Where it's, PCI is driven against protecting your charge information, your credit card information. When you start looking at PII, personally identifiable information, those protections, what are you doing to protect the customer? And I have to laugh at times because, like in the United States, for instance, we enjoyed having the largest credit agency on the planet breached a couple of years back, and all of our information is out there in the wild. So what are we protecting? So when we have these regulatory bodies coming, I'm not talking about gaming regulations. I'm talking about, privacy regulations. They're driving towards these compliances. Well, those compliances are now forcing companies to do things that they haven't had to do in the past. For instance, SIM and SOC. That's a part of a security compliance requirement. When you start looking at PCI, that's part of a compliance, right? So one of the services, one of like the best hidden secrets that Continent 8 has, we do assessments and vulnerability testing and risk assessments as well. And those risk assessments are there to tell the company, here's where your risks are, here's your rating within those risks, and here's what you need to address to close these gaps. Because just throwing appliances at the edge is not going to work. If a dedicated bad actor, either state-sponsored or other, wants to get through your firewall, it's going to take them about 3 to 10 minutes to get through your firewall. Okay? So you have to think about what's happening behind the scenes as well. And to Chad's point, once we get inside the network, that's where the protection schemas really need to come into play. Are you doing encryption? Are you doing, identity authentication? Are you two-factor authenticating? On and on and on. And it gets really deep. I mean, we could talk for hours on this subject just alone in itself. But when you start talking about the regulatory requirements, they're going to only get worse. And the reason I say that is because as this new, ransomware isn't new, but the way it's being approached is new. Like I said, there's two pillars within ransomware. And to Chad's point, when a company gets ransomware attacked, you're wiped out. They have your backups, they have your operational side, you're just plain wiped out. So your business continuity plan better come into play, which also is a part of the regulations, right? Like ISO 27001 dictates your BCP, your business continuity plan. So these layers get really thick. And then, besides the thickness, they also go wide. So you have these verticals you have to take care of. You have these horizontal, the north, south, east, west approach to security that all has to be done. The problem for companies today is they don't know how to budget for it because they budget it as an IT function. And security is not a part of IT. Security is its own separate pillar. within a company. And it shouldn't even report to IT because you're watching over the hen house. You shouldn't be, you can't be inside the hen house and then playing protector. And as a lot of companies realize, the same company that's doing your MSP, your managed services providing services, should they be the same ones that are doing your assessments? Yes, if they're separate pillars within. And for instance, Continent 8, C8 Secure, we have a separate pillar that does the compliance side, right? And the reason for that is you don't want to be that hen house watcher kind of thing. Hopefully I didn't over answer that.
No, not at all. But it just gave me a lot of info on how the whole situation developed and where we're at today. Again, being in this space, I've seen a lot of very embarrassing things happen because people haven't taken their cybersecurity very realistically. And I've actually been through a couple of cybersecurity assessments. So far, so good. Fingers crossed. We've passed with flying colors, and it was always because I believe the security first approach, which not many people do believe in, but yeah, I'm a big believer. So what you guys are doing is absolutely great. Now, over here, we've had Anthony, who's been a little bit quiet. So Anthony, actually, I'd like to know, from your side, being a Continent 8 client, could you tell us, first also a little bit about your platform and what you guys do, but also how Continent 8 has actually helped your business in its growth and its protection?
Well, yeah, thank you for the question. We prefer to see ourselves as Continent 8 partners. Continent 8 really does work very closely with us to help us figure out what our solutions are. So we don't see it as a client. We see this as a real partnership. And that's one of the things we really love about Continent 8. A little bit about ourselves, what we're doing. We're developing the first regulated video game real money platform. You're wagering on the ability to play video games, wagering on esports contests, and the platform is called Quarter, and it's coming out next year. Right, so there's a lot of gray market skill-based gaming platforms out there right now, but none of them comply with the standards required to run regulated wagering operations, and that's really complex stuff. So when we started assembling a team, we assembled a very experienced team of gaming veterans, including those from Electronic Arts and Microsoft. And our platform, you can think of it as a Xbox Live meets iGaming, right? So this is a very new thing, but where we are located in New Jersey is very aggressive about introducing these new products. And this is moving forward next year. And we believe it's going to be huge, not just for us, but also for the gaming industry and the iGaming industry. And Continent 8 has been a part of that journey really now for several years. And that's why I wanted to come here and talk about it. So the ability to add video game wagering to iGaming is going to expand the market dramatically. 70% of the US population play video games on a daily basis. So this is a really big market changer for the entire industry, we believe. And the video game wagering sector is projected to be about $100 billion in 10 years from today, which is a huge jump, right? So we are very happy to work on this project. I don't think we could have done this without Continent 8's help.
Oh, that's so. Just a quick question. So you're seeing it as $100 billion industry. So then, why so much emphasis on security? What's at risk for you?
Everything is at risk. Video game players and the video game industry have been known to be much smarter about security hacking than any other sector. Games have been hacked since their inception, and it's a normal thing for games to be hacked and change. And that is one of the things that we look out for the most. So we can't have any threats that come and threaten the data that we're providing for the users. It'll destroy the entire system. So when we work with Continent 8, we needed a partner that could eliminate the hosting and security and network complexities, right? So one of the things is that we have so much to do. There's so much data going back and forth, not just player data, but also data related to physics, data related to player standings, data related to the tracking the player's ability to make sure that they're not faking their own abilities. All that stuff is very complex. So when we're looking for hosting security networking, we don't want to add that complexity to the complexity that we already have, right? So going to multiple vendors, having those relationships, establishing those business contracts, and working with them on a daily basis and incorporating those data sets into our platform is really out of the question. One vendor is always preferred, and that vendor for us is Continent 8. Because having a one-stop shop is preferable for us. There's a lot of communication we have to do with a lot of our other vendor partners, and that eliminates. Chad knows if there's something wrong, we call Chad, right? And I have a name. I have one vendor that can apply solutions across a variety of different problems that we may have, and that just makes it much easier for us, right? So it eliminates part of the already very complex tasks that we have, and that gives me peace of mind. I mean, our expansion plans are pretty aggressive, right? So Continent 8 works with a lot, if not all of these regulated states, understands what their requirements are. So when we go from state to state, we don't have to start the conversation up with a new vendor for these services. We don't have to teach our vendors what the requirements are. In many cases, it's the opposite, teaching us what the requirements are. And that just makes our operations much easier. We need to deliver a compliant product that is free of security breaches and free of security threats. And that extends all the way out to the perimeter of the data centers. Each state has their own data center, and we keeping the security all the way through to the end users.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that is basically the end of our podcast. Now, Anthony over there, as a client, I can see how it is. In fact, you're making me consider some of my choices in one of my businesses. And Chad, I might be having a call with you very, very soon about this because, yeah, I understand the space you're in. In fact, I'm in skill games myself, and it's a very big market where there are a lot of bad actors. And the only thing is you can only be secure. So, guys, thank you very much for bringing to light these security issues that we could be facing. It is Cybersecurity Awareness Month at the end of the day. And thank you for bringing your knowledge here to the SiGMA podcast today. Chad, Brian, Anthony, thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close this episode?
No, I appreciate it, certainly.
I'd just like to thank you. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I actually do want to say something. I think,
sure.
Our business is a startup, and I wanted to thank Continent 8 for being a partner of ours. Starting something that we view as monumental requires us to pursue partners that are not going to create complexity, and partners that are going to add to part of the solutions. And I'm very thankful that Continent 8 reached out to us to work with them because they are, what we call a no-brainer solution. We don't worry about it because there's nothing to worry about. And that allows us to worry about the things that nobody else has done. So, I'm not a paid shill or anything. This is a real, consideration for businesses that are starting up is how do you lower the complexity? How do you lower the risk? And how do you protect your product? And I am very happy that this relationship with Continent 8 is happening because it allows us to change the industry. And without Continent 8, I don't think we could do it.
Thank you for that, Anthony. That's much appreciated.
No, that is absolutely awesome, and that is sort of the best recommendation you can get in a space which is constantly moving, constantly evolving. Having a partner who holds your hand and guides you along the way, so that you don't make the mistakes some others have made is absolutely fantastic. And thank you for just helping this industry grow and becoming more bigger and bigger success over the years. So thank you very much, guys. And I'm just basically going to wrap this one up. This was the SiGMA podcast, where we speak to the biggest players about the hottest topics. We'll be with you very soon with another amazing podcast here from SiGMA.